I want to stick on the point that they're delusional. What are they delusional about? What do they believe that's false?
That they are women, when they're not.
When they say that they are women, what do they mean by that?
Well, that would depend on the person.
Yeah, but like in respect to the entailment with being trans, what do they believe?
That they are a female.
That they are female, that they're like a cis woman? They were like born a woman?
Well, yeah, that's the argument that a lot of them make.
Then why do they say they're trans women? If they were born a cis female, then they wouldn't be trans women. They would just be cis females.
But the claim that a lot of them make is that they are women.
Trans women specifically identifies somebody as being born male, as having the natal sex of a male. Why would they identify as trans women if they believe that they were born women? They were like born cis females.
You have a point. Oh, hello.
Oh shit, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sick. All right. Sweet. I heard you wanted to talk about trans issues in my server, I think. And I also think you wanted to talk about abortion, but I don't know if you ever talked about abortion with the person.
I talked about it with your friend a little bit, but
oh, shit. Who was that? Who was my friend?
We don't really need to talk about that. I'm a bit more passionate about trans issues.
Oh shit. Who was my friend? Who did you talk to? Remember
I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's in some sort of like he's in the general VC right now.
Oh, gotcha. Is it Moxie? It is Moxie. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, sick. You say you're more passionate about trans issues. I take it that it means you have a pretty strong stance on
it? Strong stance. I mean, I don't hate transgender people. I think that kind of goes without saying. I just think that some of the social contagion that has been generated from it, and just the general, in my opinion, factual incorrectness of the ideology has not been a good thing for society.
Well, we can talk about the social contagion element, I suppose, in a little bit. What do you think is factually incorrect about the trans ideology? Do you think they don't have a coherent position? Do you think like something they say is descriptively wrong?
Well, I just want to make sure we're on the same page about this. Do we agree that at the moment it is biologically impossible for a male to fully transition into a female, or the other way around?
Do you mean like to reach to the other peak of like the modal distribution? Yeah, I'd say that's probably not
to fully become the other
capable of. Do you think that's what trans advocates claim? Do you think that you can claim that like you can change like your chromosomes?
Well, no, that's not necessarily what they claim. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. Not all of them do claim that. But yes, it is biologically impossible to fully change it.
Okay, well, I guess that would bring me to the question. What do you think is inaccurate about it? What's wrong? What like you say the position is like incorrect. I'm asking what's incorrect about the position.
Because it's biologically impossible to change. It's impossible to change your biological sex.
Well, and I know you just said that most of them claim that, that most of them don't claim that.
So most people will make the claim that like sex and gender are different, right? Which I do agree with. I do believe that gender is different from sex. I think gender describes masculinity and femininity, and biology, like sex, that describes biological stuff, like the reproductive system, chromosomes, right? So I do think they're different. But I do think the terms male and female, men and woman, are rooted in biology. So I don't think it's right to say that
man is biological. You think that?
Well, pretty much, yeah. I mean, up until very recently,
what do you mean when they say like be a real man?
Be a real man.
Yeah, if I come up to a guy and I'm like, dude, fucking be a real man, fucking be a man. What the fuck are you doing? Right? Do you think that I'm referring to like I want them to like grow a dick, or like their penis is like not big enough, or I'm like asking them to grow an extra Y chromosome, or do you like what do you think I'm describing?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, it is an expression. It is an expression, right? But if we're talking about a medical diagnosis, if we're talking about law, male and female do have biological roots.
Real quick. We're not talking about male and female. We're not talking about in law. You said that the only way that we use man is in a biological sense. So I'm asking you, whenever people say things like "be a real man,"
not the only way. There are other ways, like what.
Okay.
There are other ways, like what you just said, but I do believe the terms male and female, the actual definitions behind those terms, are rooted in biology.
So you keep saying male and female. Yeah. Sometimes whenever you use male, you're referring to somebody biologically. Other times we might be using it to describe some kind of social categorization. And the same thing, like with the word parent, right? If I say, oh, I'm talking to a class. Let's say I teach a class of like kindergartners, okay? And I say, hey, make sure to take this note home to your parents. I'm not describing any kind of biological relation to the kid. I'm not telling like the adopted kid to go find their biological father to talk to them. But if I like say in like a biology setting and we're doing a paternity test and I say, oh, the test results have come back, you're the parent of the child, I'm using it in a very different way. I'm using it to describe some kind of biological relation between the two of them. So if you're gonna say to me, but I want to reel us back on to the original topic. You said like the only ways that people use male or like man specifically was to refer to biology.
I didn't say that's the only way that. I didn't say that that's the only way they use them. If I did, then I misspoke. I'm saying the actual definitions of the terms and where they're rooted are in biology.
The actual definition. Do you think there's one definition for the term? Yeah, I believe like terms are used for multiple different definitions.
Yeah, I think. Like for example, when you say transgender advocates will say trans women are women. When they say woman, what do you think like they mean by that?
They're probably describing. I take it to mean that they're probably using a descriptive definition. I can tell you what I mean when I say that. I don't know if I can tell you everybody's position.
All right. Well, what do you mean by that?
I believe that we should use a definition of woman when we're talking about the social categorization, which includes trans people. That's what I think I mean when I say it. Like they ought to be regarded as women, right? Like if you were to say like civil rights or human rights, right? Well, clearly what you're trying to mean is not like that it's currently under some kind of descriptive definition or like they're currently classified as human rights. You're saying like they ought to be that way. I don't know. I don't think that like whatever people are describing it, they're describing like that trans women are all biologically identical to cis women. I think that's clearly not what they mean.
Well, yeah, of course that's not what they mean. In my eyes, what they mean is trans women are women in like a social sense, like they're more feminine, right?
Or at least some of them are.
If
some of them are going to be women in a social sense, but you could say like non-passing or like closeted trans women likely wouldn't fit that specific description. So I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think they're saying like they ought to be regarded as women, or like they're going to refer to them as women.
So you believe that the definition of the term woman refers? Correct me if I'm wrong. That you believe that the definition of the term woman essentially means someone who is more feminine?
Nope. I guess it depends.
What would you think?
Are you asking me to like describe the way that it's used in like a social sense right now? Like describe the way that people currently use it? Or are you asking
what the term means. Like when you say trans women are women, once again, how are they women?
Well,
like what defining features do they have that makes them eligible for the categorization woman?
I'm not trying to come off as though I'm like dodging your question. I'm trying to get clarification as to what you want me to answer. So if you were to ask me something like, what do you think the word parent means? I could ask some kind of clarifying question to get at what you actually mean by that. If you ask me like, what does it mean whenever somebody like uses this in this sense of the word, right? Like I could maybe tell you about that. If you're asking me for like descriptively how people currently use it, I'd be able to give you a definition for that. That's going to look something like, there's probably like a threshold of femininity that somebody reaches where they start being classified as like a woman in somebody's head, right? Like whenever somebody sees like a small girl on the street, right? And they're like running around, I don't think they're like thinking about whether they have vagina or like XX chromosomes or an active SRY gene. What I think that they're probably describing is that they fit some kind of criteria they have within their head, which causes that person to fit the term girl. And that's just going to be like the difference between the things that like cause the property that we're referring to and the actual conditions for the categorization itself. So it'd be like the distinction between like the concept of water that we have and H2O, right? If you were to like discover tomorrow that water actually wasn't made up of H2O, you wouldn't say that you're incorrect in assessing that like there's no actual water. You would just say, oh, well, we're incorrect about what water actually is. And I think that that's probably what people are using it descriptively. The way I use it prescriptively is just somebody whose preferences are going to be maximized, all else equal, being referred to as a quote woman, or any kind of other set of words which describe the feminine social categorization. Right? I think that's just the most useful. The most useful definition for it is the way that I take it to be, and that's why I prescribe it. I think that's like under utilitarianism. That seems to be the best definition that we would have.
Okay, fair. Do you believe that anybody could declare themselves a woman at any point? Like if somebody were to say, I'm a woman, like if I were to right now say that I'm a woman, even though biologically I'm a male, would that be a correct statement?
No.
In your eyes?
It depends. Are you lying? Like whenever you say woman, like possibly.
Well, there are actual categorizations of what it takes to become a woman.
This is like I think that you're making a confusion between how we know whether somebody's a woman and the actual requirements for being a woman. So here's an example that I could give you, right, to try and get the point across. I'm trying really hard to like try and bridge any kind of gaps that we have here. If you were to tell me that your favorite color is blue, I think I'm justified in believing your favorite color is blue. But you saying your favorite color is blue isn't actually what makes your favorite color blue. Does that make sense? Like, what makes your favorite color blue is actually like the objective psychological facts about yourself. When you say that your favorite color is blue, though, that gives me good reason to believe your favorite color is blue. So like whenever a trans woman says that like they're a woman, right, and they like say that they're a trans woman and that's how they identify, I think there's a good reason to believe it's the case. But like obviously that's going to be a diffusable criteria. There's going to be like cases like Steven Crowder where it's pretty obvious that they're just doing it to like make a point. Like in those cases, I think it would be the case like just because they say that they're a woman, that doesn't mean that they're a woman. There's clearly other types of there's other information that's available to us which might diffuse that epistemic criteria that we laid forward. But I don't think it's going to be the case that like just because you declare yourself a woman, it's going to make you a woman. I think that's just kind of good reason to believe that you probably are.
So you think that there are many different things that make up womanhood for many different people, many different categories? Like it's a bit of a
different people have like different descriptions of what womanhood is, but I think there's probably going to be some kind of overlap between people who are like socialized femininely. Right, like I think
you do agree that biology does play a role in the use of the word woman.
Yeah, probably. I think gender's downroot from biology, but I don't think they're the same thing.
So, is it fair to allow a biological male who has advantages over biological females to compete in female sports when you just agreed that there are biological characteristics?
Well, yeah, there are biological differences between cis men, or like males and females, but whenever we give them hormones, those tend to decrease. And then also, the other thing that I would say, well, I'm sorry, have you seen any of the relevant medical literature on this? It seems they decrease pretty substantially. I can shoot you over some of the relevant medical literature later if you're concerned about it. But like, it seems like the biggest difference you're going to have are things like. Well, no, it's not completely. I agree with you. It's not completely. I just think that they
there is still an advantage there.
Right. So, for example, even if you see like if you're familiar with, I don't know how familiar you are with testosterone and how that affects the body, but whenever people start taking things like different performance enhancing drugs, specifically things like testosterone, or they get on things like gear and things of that nature, right? It kind of overrides your body's own hormone production, and you'll see actually after these people even get off of like testosterone, their health drastically plummets. Whenever we start like specifically blocking the signals of testosterone, you also see a lot of those effects reversed, right? Like certain effects of testosterone are quite hard to reverse. Like the way that the skeleton develops would be one, like bone density would be like a big one there. But there are going to be ones that very much so do decrease, such as like muscle mass or like or lean body tissue in general, right? Those are going to be things that are going to be pretty much so decreased if you don't have testosterone. You're going to see like other types of sports performances decrease. But one thing I would say on this point is I don't think that the solution here, or like I don't think this is a defeater for the position, right? If we could imagine that like certain women might have other biological advantages over other women, and that's not going to be fair within sports. I think quite a lot of sports is genetics. Even if you go to like 90% of the people who are going to see at the very top echelons of sports are going to be incredibly genetically gifted. I don't think that like sports is supposed to be the most even playing field. I think that we have it currently set up in a way that kind of like is gendered to try and alleviate some of that, but I don't think that that's like the end all be all of sports. And I also just don't care too much about this topic. But I mean, I guess we can continue talking about it if you care to.
Hold on. So I do agree. If somebody's been on like hormones or gotten surgeries for like 10, 20 years, then sure, they're going to be pretty close to biological women. I think the problem comes in though when in a lot of states and in Canada, the UK, and many places, all it takes to have a biological male, regardless of how far they are into their transition, be accepted into a female sports division and be able to enter a female's bathroom, female change room. So this is the thing, a lot of transgender advocates make the argument that sex and gender are different, but as a society, we're not really being that consistent with our differentiation between them. So I think that's where a lot of the issues come in, because you're saying that, you said that transgender advocates are claiming, they're not claiming that, for example, a biological male who identifies as a woman is fully a woman, but we are putting laws in place.
Well, no, they are going to claim that they're a woman in certain ways. They're not going to claim that they're biological, like they're the same as a cis woman. But that's what we're doing. Well, we're allowing them to join sports division.
If we're claiming
no, allowing somebody to play in the same sport as you doesn't declare that you're the same biologically. Are you crazy? Like, whenever you see, like, the top swimmers, for example, what's his name? The Michael, like, Phelps guy. Am I getting that name right? I could be getting wildly wrong about that. But I guarantee you look at his biology, it's going to be wildly different from the lower level competitors. It's going to be wildly different from most cis men. Right? Whenever you allow somebody to compete with other people, it isn't declaring that they're the exact same biologically. If you look like the top echelons of even even sports that aren't competitive, aren't contact at all, things like bodybuilding, right? You look at like the classic division of the IFBB, like Chris Bumstead fucking dominates that place, and a lot of that's going to be due to things like muscle insertions, which are going to be things completely biologically determined, and are most certainly not going to be like shifted through like people because they have similar muscle insertions. We don't do that.
But why were male and female sports divisions separated in the first place?
They're probably separated due to different types of societal expectations. I don't know why they're separated initially. Probably, yeah. There's probably some element to do with the physical differences between men and women.
Because there are several biological advantages.
The biological advantages and like certain interplay between things. Yeah, of course.
Because I would argue that that's the main thing.
So, do you think that's okay? Just to be clear, because we're way off the topic now, but I kind of want to get into this topic. Do you think that like sports or whatever you allow somebody to play in a sport with somebody else, you're declaring the same biologically?
Not necessarily, no, but it would be more fair if we could create some parameters.
So they're not claiming that they're the same biologically.
And it's not fair to allow a biological male into a division that claims to be a female division.
Is it fair
because regardless of how far they are into their transition, anybody can enter a female sports division.
Is it fair to allow people who have exceedingly good genetics to compete against those who don't?
I would argue no.
Oh, so are you in favor of?
I would argue there should be weight divisions and things like this.
Oh, okay. There should be weight divisions. Shouldn't there be like hormone divisions too? Then, wouldn't that be more efficient than splitting it by men and women?
Maybe. But all I know is that we have male and female divisions, and we're allowing males into the female division.
We both don't think that the male and female divisions should exist. And it sounds like you don't have a very good argument as to why like it's going to be especially different whenever it comes to like trans people. Right? It seems like you just conceded that like we allow people to be in the same division all the time who aren't the exact same biologically and do have some kind of unfair biological advantages. Like I think that like a large amount of
female division. How is it fair to let a male into that? How is it fair to let a male into a female division?
I argue it's probably not like completely fair. I don't think it's completely fair to let like Chris Bumstead compete against people who have like really bad muscle insertions.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying.
I don't think sports are supposed to be fair biologically. I don't think that's what sports are.
So this is what I'm saying though. If we're claiming that the left or whatever term you want to use for people who advocate for transgender rights or transgenderism, they'll claim that it's about gender as opposed to sex. But it's really not because we're implying many sex-based things on it.
Well, no, it's just the most convenient place to have people compete, though. It's just kind of like obviously is.
It's
they're not saying that you've already conceded that they're not saying the exact same sex-wise or biologically even, right? What they're saying is just like that there isn't so much a difference between the two of them where it's probably okay for them to compete in the same division. Like I would much rather have a trans woman competing with like the one that's gone over like hormones for over a year or something. Like what I think that's the requirement generally speaking to get into these divisions. I would much rather
there isn't a requirement.
Well, I think you're just dead wrong on that. Do you have like any kind of reference for data on that? There's no requirement whatsoever.
I mean, in a few states and in Canada, yes, anybody can join a female division.
Oh, which states?
Which states?
Yeah,
I can't name off the top of my head, but I know there's differing laws.
Can you link me any of the legislation? Any of like the rule sets of these places? Have you seen any of them?
You can Google it if you don't believe me. I don't have any bookmarked off the top of my head.
I haven't seen any of that. I've actually seen the exact opposite every single time that I looked it up. I don't know. Where did you see it? Why do you believe that's the case?
Wait, so you've seen like in law you have to transition a certain amount before getting into a female division
specifically. Normally that type of thing is handled in rule sets. If that's handled
you did concede. You did concede that doesn't fully eliminate the advantage that they have, though, right?
Of course, yeah. It doesn't fully eliminate the advantage to allow like people with particularly good genetics into sports either. I don't think that it's like about completely eliminating the advantage. I think that there's like fun that comes with playing sports. I think there's some kind of like some kind of entertainment value when it comes to sports, and I think that people should compete in like a place that I guess is the most fun for all of them, right? I don't think that like trans women are dominating female sports. I don't think that's the case. I think it's probably fine for right now that they're in female sports.
Yeah, statistically they're not dominating that much, but the fact that a biological male with a large advantage over most females can join and destroy them is not fair.
Well, no, they can't just join and destroy them. They're not joining and destroying them, right? It's not even that they're like not dominating that much. They're not dominating at all. It's not even close.
Well, there has been transgender women that have.
There has been transgender women who win, but not disproportionately. Actually, like I believe that the percentage of people who are competing at the top level who are trans are going to be like less so than cis. It's going to be disproportionate on the other end. Seems like cis women are dominating trans women to me.
Well, yeah, there's more cis women than trans women.
No,
talking proportionately than.
At least
I haven't seen that. If you have like
a
statistic to back that up, and that's surprising to me.
But I guess I want to get back onto the topic that you kind of shifted off on. What do you believe it's the case that like anybody can join in? Why do you think that's true? Why do you think it's the case that just anybody can join in to like a women's league? There's like no requirements in sports.
No requirements?
Yeah.
Well, not just anybody can join it. I misspoke there. Yes, there probably are some requirements depending on the state or the country, but at the end of the day, my argument is that it is unfair to let a biological male compete in women's sports.
And my argument is that we don't care whether that's exactly biologically fair. It's pretty obvious we don't care about that. You allow people to compete in sports all the time, and you admit it's not biologically fair, and you're against the way that we have sports currently set up. How would you suggest that we fix this problem?
The problem, trans women entering women's
this
division?
supposed problem. I don't know why it's a problem. It doesn't seem that they're like doing particularly well in these sports. Even if they do have like some kind of slight biological advantage, that doesn't seem to be the case. It doesn't seem to be the case. They're dominating like cis women when it comes to these sports. I'm just wondering like what problem do you think is there, and how would you fix it?
I think a biological male should compete in a male sport. I think a biological female should compete in a female sport.
You think that like Blair White, if she chose to go up against like in sports, should compete against fucking me? I would.
Well, I'm not sure who Blair White is.
With all due respect, I would fucking kill that bitch. All right, she'd be fucking dead. I don't think that I should compete against people who have been on like HRT for a long period. That seems wildly unfair. That seems way more unfair than allowing them to compete in the other way. I think that if the most fair option here seems to be allowing them to compete in the fucking in the sport for the gender that they align with. Like it's either way closer to women biologically than they are to me. I can tell you that much.
It is
when it comes to sport.
It is a very complicated topic in a lot of ways, but I think my main point here was that the movement is arguing that sex and gender are not conflated, but we are conflating them just by doing things like this.
No, we're not.
But we're arguing that people aren't changing their sexes; they're changing their genders, but we're allowing them into inherently sex-based things.
Well, they are changing their sex to certain degrees. Do you believe that they're not changing certain forms of their sex?
Well, they are changing. They can change certain forms. Like with the gender reassignment surgery, you can change how those organs look externally. But if a biological male were to transition into a female, he would not be able to get pregnant. How do those
organs look external? Yeah, if a biological male transitions to a female, they won't be able to get pregnant. Neither will a fucking infertile woman. That doesn't make them not a woman. Doesn't make them not that sex.
Well, there are plenty of other biological traits like chromosome, the bone structure, bone density.
There are also things like hormonal sex, right? There are like phenotypical sex characteristics. Okay, but we can change certain ones of those, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, and things like hormonal sex are some of the most important when it comes to sport performance. The most important forms of sex we can change when it comes to sport performance. The only argument I might be able to see is like certain forms of bone density seems to have some kind of retention. But that's not going to be as large of a influence on sport performance as like muscle mass would. Like that's the reason like I would fucking destroy Blair White. Like I don't give a fuck if they have the same bone density as me. I'm carrying like way more muscle than they are and probably a lower body fat percentage too.
Okay, fair enough.
Gotcha. Okay. So you said that the trans movement was wrong. I'm still wondering, what are they wrong about?
Well, I do think there's a big social contagion element of it. we do agree that gender dysphoria in general.
Can we just concede this point then, that they're not like factually wrong on things? So maybe you just think there's like some kind of like harm to it.
Yeah, on a certain level, yes. If a biological male wants to partially transition into a female, they want to take the hormones, get the surgeries, then to a certain degree, they have aspects of being a woman, but you could dig up their bones in 100 years and find the male skeleton. Every cell and chromosome in their body is male, so you can't fully transition.
But you'd concede to me, wait, real quick, you concede to me that the most fair way to have trans people in sports right now is to have them compete in the gender that they align with, right? The ones who have been on hormones, that's the most fair way?
If they've been on hormones for a certain amount of time, then fair enough. I do not think that you should be
set up right
allowed into. All right.
Okay, gotcha. So what do you think the trans movement's wrong on? Let's start with that, and then we can get into social conflict.
When I think it comes to social contagion, we do agree that gender dysphoria and being confused about your gender identity is a state of suffering. It's a state of confusion, and it's a bad thing for a person to experience.
Oh yeah,
right?
Gender dysphoria seems to suck a lot. Yep, I would agree.
Well, yeah. So how is it fair to take this thing and be showing it to children, be pushing it out everywhere, this state of suffering with buzzwords like special and unique, and essentially turning it into this thing that's almost become a trend on social media? Because if we're taking this state of suffering...
Yeah, I don't think it's the case that people are so mistaken about their their gender identity that they go and get like some kind of care. It doesn't seem that there's like a large detransition rate of some kind. It'd be like saying like, why are we okay with showing like people fucking amputees and like saying that, hey guys, you shouldn't bully the kid with one leg, when it could cause them to think that that's really cool and go get their leg cut off. It's just because it doesn't happen. It just really doesn't happen. We don't see it happen.
Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, though, as a society within the past few years, like with Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, we've essentially created two categories for humans, which is oppressed and oppressor, with oppressed being like straight white male and with oppressed being like person of color, LGBTQ, like women, stuff like this. Now, here's the thing though. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you're going to, nobody really wants to be an oppressor. So if you give somebody an option to become an oppressed person, to be praised by their favorite Hollywood celebrities, to be special and unique, then you think they're not going to take that opportunity? You think there's not a chance that people are going to inflate themselves with this?
I don't think they're going to get gender dysphoria. I don't think they're going to adopt I don't think they actually like have the mental disorder. Of course not. Like, maybe it's the case that like certain people go on Twitter and they lie about their pronouns or something. I'd be willing to concede that. But are they going to get the mental disorder you're talking about that inflicts suffering upon people? Of course not. I don't think people like spontaneously develop gender dysphoria. So what's your point then? Your point was like that people are going to be getting gender dysphoria because of the way that we have it. But then you're like conceding that point now. So what do you think that they're doing that's like bad?
I believe it's not good. I believe it's not good to take in my opinion, in a lot of ways, factually incorrect basis of being able to change your gender and to be pushing that and forcing it on children in the education system and in the media.
What's factually incorrect about it? You're going back to the point
because they're claiming that people can fully change. They're claiming that people can change their biological sex.
In certain ways, they can.
Yeah, in certain ways, they can change hormones.
So they can change their biological sex.
Not fully, no, because at the end of the day, once again, you dig up a skeleton.
Hold on, real quick. So now we need to get down to this, okay? This is the important part. Do you think that you can change your appearance?
Your appearance, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that you can fully change your appearance?
Yes.
Oh. You think you can fully change your appearance? So why wouldn't that extend to like sex?
I mean,
you can fully can you fully change like the way that your bones look, like the way your pelvis looks?
Okay, fully change. When we talk about experience, if we talk about, sorry, I said experience. If we're talking about appearance. Do you mean like the way that your body is and looks fully?
The way that your body is.
Somebody
yes,
walking
I'm talking
down
about
the
the way that your body is.
Then you can't fully change that. But if we're talking about just walking down the street and seeing somebody, then yeah.
But you can change the way that your body looks. So you can change your sex. You can't fully change your sex. These can both be true. These aren't contradictory. So what's the problem?
That's true.
You said that the problem was that they were pushing that you can change your sex, and they were wrong because you can't fully change your sex. But we both agree you can like change your appearance, for example. You can't fully change your appearance. You can't fully change the way that you are physically. So why these both seem to be true statements? I don't see what they're wrong about. So I guess we're back to the same question. What are they wrong about?
I think at the end of the day, the idea of saying that anybody can change their gender, have these different gender identities, while not being fully wrong, at the end of the day, there are a lot of factually incorrect parts of this thing. Like,
what are the
once again,
factually
there are
incorrect
aspects
parts
of
that
it
we're pushing on children?
saying that you can fully change your biological sex is incorrect.
Nobody
we both
said
agreed
you,
on this.
Can you show me anybody saying that you could fully change your biological sex, like any kind of school regimen ever? That's never been pushed on anybody.
But at the end of the day, if we have these things in education systems, because we agree that gender dysphoria and being confused about your identity is a state of suffering, but the amount of total transgenders has increased extremely within the past decade or so.
Yeah, more people are getting treatment for it. I think that's good. It seems that trans people, when they don't get treatment, it's really bad for them. Super bad.
Not treatment, though. People who actually identify as transgender. So if we agree that transgenderism is a state of suffering, exponentially increasing this number is not a good thing.
Wait, real quick. More people are diagnosed with cancer as cancer awareness becomes a thing. Do you think that because cancer is bad, we should have less people diagnosed with cancer? Think we should lower cancer awareness so that less people get diagnosed with it?
Do you think that more cancer awareness creates more people getting cancer?
Getting diagnosed with cancer, 100%. Yep. More people get shocked by their doctor. More people get screened for cancer. Of course, it increases cancer diagnosis.
Well, yeah, because more people know how to identify cancer, and cancer becomes more of a well-known thing.
And as more people be able to identify gender dysphoria, more people are going to identify it.
Well, yes, but not just gender dysphoria, because you said not everyone's going to identify with this an actual mental illness. More transgenders in general.
So, the bad part about being trans is the gender dysphoria. That's the really bad part. That's the part you were talking about.
But there's also the hormones that people take, such as estrogen, that can have terrible side effects on people.
Why do people get estrogen? What is that a treatment for?
It's to alter the hormones.
What is it a treatment for? When trans people get it, what are they treating?
Dysphoria, yes.
Oh, so they're treating gender dysphoria. So the problem is having gender dysphoria. But I'm saying that if there is a social contagion element, it's not going to be causing people to develop gender dysphoria. I don't see any reason to believe that's the case. And I most certainly haven't seen any data suggesting that to be the case. On your hypothesis that people are being pushed into transitioning and it's like the treatment they don't need and it's going to be harmful for them, you see very few people regretting transition. You see very few people seeking to medically detransition. The people who do seek to medically detransition are wildly in numbers going to be caused by the oppression they face and things like the job market, the pressures from their family to not transition. And a very, very small minority of them are going to say it's the case that they detransition because gender-affirming care wasn't right for them. I think the majority of people detransition, it's not even like these societal pressures that they run out of money to do it. They can't afford the hormones anymore. Right? Those are also counted as sisters. Depending on how you break up the data and in the various ways that you do, you're always going to see this to be the case. It's just going to be slightly different numbers depending on what you can count as a sister.
Well, yeah. When it comes to gender dysphoria, though, whether or not they have the mental illness, there are many conflicting studies about transgender suicide and depression rates before and after the transition. But at the end of the day, the idea of affirmation being the solution to a mental disorder, because this is another issue.
Here it obviously is.
I don't think that's a good thing for society, because if you see someone that's fucking hallucinating, are you going to tell them that the hallucinations are real, or will you get them help? If someone is anorexic, will you allow them to continue not eating, or will you get them help?
The person
you can bring up studies and make the argument that conversion therapy doesn't work.
Please. The reason to answer your first question before you ask the second one without giving me a chance to respond, right? The reason you don't reinforce somebody hallucinating is because they have a delusion, right? People who have anorexia or body dysmorphia have a delusion. Trans people don't have a delusion, and also just because they're both mental illnesses doesn't mean the treatment for them is the same, right? Having cancer and a broken arm are both physical ailments, right? They're both physical injuries to some degree, or even being infected with something and having cancer or similar ailments in the way that they're biologically your cells are being. Well, it's not the case with the ailment. I'm sorry. I'm incorrect about that. But in the case that they're they're both types of sicknesses upon your body, right? That would be an example of it. But that doesn't mean we treat them both the same way, right? Just because two things are mental illnesses doesn't mean that we treat them both the same way. So saying that we treat them both that we should treat them both the same way because they're both mental illnesses doesn't seem to follow.
Well, you said trans people don't have a delusion. I believe they do have a delusion because yes, you can take hormones. Yes, you can take hormones, and yes, you can wear a dress and stuff like this. But at the end of the day, you can't fully change your biological sex, and that is the delusion.
With trans people don't believe that you can fully change your biological sex. That's why they're trans. Trans people?
But they believe that they're women. A male
when they say that they're
who has
women,
gender dysphoria believes he's a woman.
Well, no. If someone with gender dysphoria, it's like some kind. Well, the thing that they're going to believe is they have certain psychological dispositions. Some of them are going to believe that makes them women, right? And if they use the definition in like respect to somebody's like preferences or somebody's identification, and in that way they would be correct, right? If what they mean by a woman is that they have a certain set of preferences which lead them to be like to lead them to want to be called a woman. If that's what they mean, they're going to be correct in respect to that criteria. I don't see what the false thing that they believe is.
Well, yeah, but I just think that if I believe that if we didn't accept the idea of identifying with this, nowhere near as many people would identify with it. Like, if a male wants to wear a dress, go ahead and wear your dress.
You said that
but at the end of the day, to claim that person is a woman...
Wait, real quick. That's great, but you said that they were delusional. I want to stick on the point that they're delusional. What are they delusional about? What do they believe that's false?
That they are women, when they're not.
When they say that they are women, what do they mean by that?
Well, that would depend on the person.
Yeah, but like in respect to the entailment with being trans, what do they believe?
That they are a female.
That they are a female, they're like a cis woman. They were like born a woman.
Well, yeah, that's the argument that a lot of them make.
Then why do they say they're trans women? If they were born a cis female, then they wouldn't be trans women. They would just be cis females.
But the claim that a lot of them make is that they are women.
Trans women specifically identifies somebody as being born male, as having the sex, the natal sex of a male. Why would they identify as trans women if they believe that they were born women? They were like born cis females.
You have a point.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, this was a mistake. You have a point.
Okay.
I think
it's good that
you
they
have
don't
a
have
point
a conclusion.
here.
So now let's get on to the why. What's the problem you think socially? I don't want to hold you on a point if you just concede it. It's like cool.
Well, yeah, I just think generally to make somebody believe that they're the other gender or to want to do it for attention, I do believe that is a harmful thing.
These people who are like being convinced, what do you think is happening to them?
Well, in certain cases, it can bring out those feelings in a person, right? Like when you say gender dysphoria can't just develop, that isn't necessarily true.
I haven't.
If somebody
that people are developing gender dysphoria as a social contagion. What data have you seen that suggest that?
Well, if somebody is told that about like a certain identity, like that they can become a female or that they can become a male if they're a biological female, stuff like this.
People aren't being
at the end of the day, they can develop gender dysphoric feeling.
Well, why? Why do you think that?
Because that's just the very essence of a mental illness.
So you think that people are spontaneously developing this because of something that we say to trans people? I'm not quite sure just what yet, but I'm asking you.
I don't think developing feelings and confusion with your gender identity is something you're born with. I think that can happen due to many different things.
So, why do you think that these people are developing? Like, what have you seen that suggests that?
Well, it's really just common sense. If you're told that you can become a woman if you're a male.
What? Okay, if you're told that you can become a woman if you're a male, okay, I got you there. I understand. If you're told about like gender
if you're told that, then there is always a chance that somebody could develop those feelings. It's like if you see the argument that video games cause violence and stuff like that.
The one that's shown to be not true in academia. That's like widely not true. That like we've harped on politicians for years for pushing when it's just completely inaccurate.
Wait, what are you referring to here?
Oh, the argument that video games cause violence. We've harped on politicians for ages. This used to be like a whole thing on the internet where people would like talk about how incorrect this point was. It just doesn't bear out in the data. There's not a strong correlation between video games and violence.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think if you're shown something and introduce something to that, there is a chance that they're going to adopt that. And that's like if you look at TikTok, I do believe it's become a trend. I do believe this LGBTQ thing has become a trend because New genders and sexualities are being invented by the day. And the point that I made earlier about being an
people
oppressor
invent
and
new
being
concepts
oppressed and wanting
too.
to identify by an oppressed group, even if you do it for attention at first, at a certain point, telling yourself this over and over again can cause actual confusion with gender identity, which we've established is a state of suffering.
So, okay. If I tell somebody about cancer, do you think they're going to develop cancer?
Well, no,
Probably
because
not,
that's
right?
a biological
Okay. So we agree on that part. Okay. So if I tell somebody about schizophrenia, do you think it's like wrong that we like tell people about treatments for schizophrenia?
Not necessarily. I'm not entirely educated on how schizophrenia works.
Well, you're not entirely educated on how gender dysphoria works either. You just told me that it's common sense. You didn't have to do any research on it. You have no research on this.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that generally, if you tell somebody,
is that same thing applicable?
I'm not necessarily referring to gender dysphoria as like an actual diagnosis. I'm just talking about feelings of confusion regarding gender identity. So we are undoubtedly creating more of this.
Confusion. Do you mean like introspection?
I just mean by telling people that they can become a transgender when a lot of the time they might just be a normal.
I don't think that anybody who I'm not going to believe without any evidence that these people in swarms exist who get told about trans people, like gender affirming care and like estrogen, and like all of a sudden these completely normal people who are totally cis are just like, damn dude, maybe I should get on estrogen and cut my dick off. Maybe that is what I should do. And there's like absolutely no deeper level of like they had some probably uncomfortable feelings about things in the past. Like I don't see any reason to believe that's true. And I think that if that was the case, that these people were getting these treatments whenever they didn't have gender dysphoria, what you'd see is them purporting that they regret the surgery or they regret the transition, because we've seen within individuals that like putting them into these situations where they have to express in a way which isn't in alignment with their gender identity tends to cause them a great deal of discomfort. That's the entire mechanism behind gender dysphoria. That's like why if you were to like put on a dress and walk outside, you'd feel super fucking uncomfortable, right? These types of things are like huge influences on individuals, and I don't think that you just see people going out getting these surgeries and then just like being totally fine with it. Like that seems very strange to me. It seems like on your hypothesis and everything that we know about gender, you'd expect these people to regret transition. You'd expect to have like a lot of people who do so and end up reporting it, and we have any kind of data on this whatsoever, and it doesn't seem to be the case. It doesn't seem to bear out. So I don't know what evidence you have to believe this to be true.
Well, I just think
the only argument is common sense, I'm just going to say like it's common sense that's fucking wrong, and then all of academia seems to think that's fucking wrong too.
I just think that if you're being made aware of a certain okay, here's the thing though. If I'm talking about how raising awareness about the situation can create more gender dysphoric people and more confused feelings, I think it does create a question. What's the benefit of turning this into a big social justice movement?
I think the benefit
and turning it into like a TikTok trend.
I think
whatever.
Okay, so if we're going to concede that there's no reason to believe that people are getting the social contagion element, and you just think that like there's no benefit to doing any of this, the benefit I would tell you is that we seem to have people who are going to be getting care that they absolutely need. Whenever we look at the data, it seems incredibly beneficial for them. We're going to be reducing the amount of stigmatization that these people have when they're given society, which seems to be incredibly beneficial for them, more so than even surgery is. Just the acceptance within like a family alone seems to be incredibly helpful for these people's mental health. I think that these are going to be really good reasons as to why we should probably try to destigmatize trans people and like have them accepted within society. It seems really bad that we don't.
All right, fair enough.
Gotcha.
This was fun. I think
it was really informative.
I think you provided a lot of good reasons. I think you've provided some things for me to think about, and I do think this was constructive. I give. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, of course. It was really fun chatting with you, dude. Don't give up on these things, okay? They're super interesting to research, right? I genuinely suggest that you take some of the time to go out and research some of these points. You might find some data that disagrees with me. That would be really interesting to take a look at, but yeah.
All right, see ya.
All right, yeah, peace, my dude. That guy was chill. That was fun.